Some people ain't built for this. You need your passion for it.
Don't make games.
Hello, divas, dudes, and dolls.
Welcome to WIG, where we woohoo with who knew over indie games. This is my co-host, Chara. Why did I do that? I did it to myself.
We can try it again.
No, go for it. I think that's hilarious.
Okay, we'll keep it in. We'll keep it in the post. We're doing it live. She's Chara. I'm Chara.
No, the other way.
Yes, I'm Chara Couture, and this is my co-host Chara, and we are joined today on our second episode of our podcast by Neil Jones, also known as Ariel Knight. So thank you for coming and talking to us about your work as a developer and your games and gaming and indies and all that jazz.
All the stuff. Yeah, no, thanks for asking me to come on.
I was reading a little bit about your newest game coming out called We Never Yield, which follows two brother kings who are forced from their throne from their evil aunt. So I wanted to ask you, do you have an evil aunt?
I don't. Yeah, the evil aunt thing got slid into the press release. It's supposed to be a surprise, though.
Oh, it's on your website.
It's on the website?
It's on your website.
I don't look at that. Just copy and paste. Like,
this comes out in September.
Like, hey, how does this sound? And I'm like, good. And I go back to making the game. And then I know the stuff later. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. But no, I don't have an evil aunt. This is well, I like the fact that this is a very family oriented story.
Yeah, keeping it in the family. No, but aside from an evil aunt, I was curious what inspired characters like Wally and Lone. I noticed that in the design they kind of have like a prosthetic leg, and I wondered if that was like an intentional like inclusivity kind of thing, which I really like it. I like the design a lot, and like the same with the ant character. Like, where do their origins or inspirations come from? Yeah,
so I wanted people to gravitate towards those features because it's just a cool feature to have, and a lot like just to make characters stand out a little bit more. But the characters are based off like the heroes I had when I was a kid, actual Foley, things like that, and Wally's was designed like 5-6 years ago, so it's not anything recent. But the prosthetic leg comes from the fact that the both characters are based around my uncle, who came to live with me when I was younger. He got sick and lost one of his legs, and he had this cool fake leg that he would swing around, sometimes take off and swing around, and I thought it was pretty cool. So yeah, it's pretty simple. I kind of base characters off of like people I know, because then I can kind of give them that kind of personality.
Yeah, I love that.
Wally was based off of more of like a Goku anime protagonist type of vibe, and Lone is based more off of like a Vegeta Piccolo type of vibe, just kind of reserved and pulled back. In a lot of stories, they fight, and they hate each other forever. But in this story, they're forced to kind of like work together and kind of get through it. And the more you play, the more Lone kind of opens up, and he's laughing, and he's like, hey, this isn't so bad. Things ain't so bad.
Yeah. I noticed that like We Never Yield has voice acting, and I love the like voice actors line up. It's so cool.
Yeah, I kind of based off the voice actors based off of people who were excited about the first game. The first game was very small. It's just me kind of like in my grandma's basement, just kind of working off of a $300 computer. Like, people don't understand that. When I made the first game, I did it for absolutely no money. Dan, who did my music, he was paid in pizza and dinners. So we got this award-winning soundtrack that we was just kind of making in our free time, and like the whole first game was made off of this terrible $300 laptop that it was the only thing I could afford. And I was just doing it in my free time. I had 2 jobs. I would come home at like 11 o'clock and be like, what can I get done? And then, we got into the Indie World Showcase and we got a lot of attention. Publishers reached out and we were able to kind of make a deal to kind of have them help us port it to different platforms. Yeah, it was just me just kind of just making stuff and trying to figure out stuff and launch this multi-platform game off this really terrible laptop and no kind of resources. and it worked out. I kind of at the end of the first game, I kind of made this after credit scene because I really love after credit scenes where,
Mhm.
after the fight they are teleported to this place or whatever, and then I do a splash card and it says "We never yield" to kind of show that there's a potential for something else, and people really like that. So for years, it was just like that concept was in my head of like, what does this game look like? But you controlling two characters instead of one.
Yeah, we love a teaser.
Oh, absolutely.
The teaser for this game, "We Never Yield," is crazy.
Yeah.
It's my like I literally thought of the teaser for this next game, the end credit scene, before the whole game. Um, it's a wild swing that I don't think people are expecting.
It's very exciting. I mean, going into like you doing basically everything yourself off this $300 laptop. I know, like, being a developer, obviously, like, neither of us are in that position, but it's a lot of work. And I think a lot of people who are just on the consumer side of gaming, like, they get that, but I don't think they truly understand the scope of everything that you have to do to make a game run as well as Never Yield runs. When you're in that position of doing everything yourself, where do you even start?
Well, I don't think any game is truly 100% one person because
Oh,
you
yeah.
download some assets to kind of help you get there. You have a head start with like Unity when back in the day where they were writing code from scratch. You couldn't just pull something from
Hmm.
the asset store. So yeah, I'm not trying to minimize how much work it took. I call video games a combination of all other forms of media because you need music, you need
Hmm.
voice acting, you need to be a writer, you need to be a director, know kind of like cinematography and camera angles and things like that. You need to be a gamer, know like how to gamify pretty much everything, even UI. You need to know UI design, graphic design, all these things. You don't need to know those things, but you want all those things to be good to make one solid package. That's why AAA games have thousands of people working on it because most of the
Absolutely.
time, you want people with that specialty and who can kind of just like focus on that one thing.
Do you think that there's like, because like I can imagine, because I've thought about making a game once or twice, and because my husband's a computer programmer, so I was like, well, we kind of have this, in the bag. I feel like,
You
but we
you would
don't.
think.
Um, and as for like people who might be new or aspiring developers, what do you think is kind of like the best place to start?
Not to just enjoy games. I would say just play games. Some people ain't built for this. You find your passion for it.
Don't make games.
That hey, look, it's the honest answer. I've seen a lot of people be like, I really like games. I think I'm better than developers, so that's why I want to make games. So if that's your reasoning, don't do it. It's not
Yeah.
worth it. It's
Yeah.
not for you, right? But if you're very technical, so when I was a kid, I was more interested in the G4 interviews of the developers, of them talking about how things are put together. So if you got that mindset, then yes, development is for you. But
Yeah.
if you just like games and you think you can do better than X, Y, and Z, then I would say maybe it's not for you. That's
Right.
I'm just trying to save people some time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
and you can test your capabilities of like giving yourself a week to open up Unity, make a box move left and right, and if you feel like it's the end of all times, by just making that, and you're like, this is terrible, then I don't know. You got to kind of
Yeah.
see how you feel about it. It's not the safe answer. The safe answer is
Yeah.
just telling people, hey, you can do anything you put your mind to.
Of
But
course.
that's a lie. You
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
No, I
Definitely.
appreciate it.
Yeah, because like I went to a college that has a really good game design program, and the
Mm.
first thing they do in that is like they throw you to the wolves with all the coding and everything, and the drop off rate in that first semester is wild. I think it's probably not even like 30% of the people who start in the majors last more than a semester
Yeah.
because they don't realize how difficult it is to actually do the work. I always find it really impressive when, it's a really small team or, a handful of people doing everything. I see the scale of all the pieces coming together.
Yeah. It truly is a lot. Um, the first game I pretty much had to kind of handle everything, and that's why everything's okay. I really like the first game, for what it is. Um, And people who know the context of how that game was made is like, this is amazing. Like that's why devs like that game so much. They're
Yeah.
like, it's just crazy that it exists, right? With this follow up, I was telling people, imagine if I had some people helping me.
Hmm.
Imagine if I had some support. We still don't have the largest budget. We have a very small budget for this game, and it's kind of ridiculous what we pulled off. Somebody's gonna write a book about it one day. Of like this game should not exist.
Yeah.
It's over what is it, almost 30 levels. We did
Oh
it in a
wow.
very small time frame, fully voice acted, bunch of cutscenes. I kind of pulled back on functionality and focused on art, direction, design, and all the other artistic things.
Hmm.
While this amazing studio out of London called Beta Adjuster helped me with the functionality, where I kind of did the core setup of a lot of things, and then they kind of took it from there just to make sure everything was working, and took all that stress off my shoulders. And that's why you can see like the visual upgrade in the game, because I had more time to kind of focus on it. I had more time to be like, hey, this UI isn't the most functional for what it should be. So in the first game, you notice how everything was in the main menu and you had to kind of figure it out, right? But this game, I made hub areas and kind of pulled some stuff. I was like, this doesn't need to be in the main menu. We can like kind of put this in over here, or we can make a new space for this. We kind of just broke things down a lot more.
I think Kara's expecting me to ask the next question. I'm expecting her
Yes.
to ask the next question. And I'm just like trying to be current. We're both very like overly polite to each other.
I'm used to everyone talking over each other all the time. So.
Yeah. I mean, when it's just the two of us at 3 a.m., that's pretty much what it is. It's both
Yes.
of us being like, shut up.
In any other context, it's like, no, you go, no, you go, and
Yeah,
it just
yeah.
that's just how it always is. So like we were reading like other press interviews and stuff while doing research for today, and just like your history with the layoffs compared to like what it is now. Like, what do you think the indie gaming landscape is going to be like in the next like 5 years? Just because so many
What
people are
what do
dropping
you
off.
what do you all think?
Like, I personally think we're going to see a lot more solo dev projects or really small team like passion
Mhm.
projects just being put out there.
Yeah, I feel like, at least for me, like I feel like we had the like indie apocalypse scare like in what 2015 or something, and I feel like we're gonna have another one, but I don't know. Like I don't know if it's gonna be good, bad. Like is there gonna be too many games? Are people gonna be done with games? I feel like a lot of AAA titles are becoming too expensive, like especially with consoles and whatever. And I think that's what makes indie games so fun and like it's more like monetarily accessible. And they're usually catered to more of like more specifics of like what people might be looking for. They have more options to choose from. So I don't know. I think it could be good, it could be bad.
I mean, predicting the future is always, weird because,
Yeah.
people online are gonna, if you're wrong, that's what they're gonna remember. But if you're
Mm-hmm.
right, they're gonna be like, oh, well, it was so obvious. 4 years ago or so, when my first game came out, I predicted the crash. I was like, game industry is going down.
Yeah.
I also like was making my rounds because that's when Cyberpunk kind of came out, and everybody was like saying, "Oh, this is the worst thing ever made," and I was like, "Buy it anyway," because there's no way that CG Project Red's not going to update it, and it's going to be the most perfect game. It's going to be amazing, getting 10 out of 10s. So I'm just saying I have a good track record for these types of things. From my perspective, I think you're going to see a lot less indie games. Because getting funding for indie games is extremely difficult. Like it's the hardest I've ever seen it. The returns aren't really there, and then it's so random. If people say just make a good game, and that used to be true, but now you can make a good game and it still not sell.
Yeah.
It can
Yeah.
get buried. There's a lot of 9 out of 10s, 10 out of 10s coming out, and there's not too many original mechanics. So either the game is successful but it gets buried, or or I mean it comes out and it's well reviewed. Let me not say successful. It's well reviewed but it gets buried, or it kind of just comes out and no one kind of like funds it or backs it or whatever, and it doesn't make enough revenue to kind of justify doing anything else, right? So indies are in a bad spot where they kind of doing passion projects at cost, and they're lucky if they make their money back. My budgets are very small. My team's very small. So I don't really need much, and I work really quickly because I personally kind of cover a lot of titles. You know, I do all the art, all the design, all the UI. I cut the trailers, stuff like that. But a lot of indies don't really do that, and it takes them 5-6 years to kind of get a project done. So it's just like a lot of factors that adds up to indies not making the most sense. Triple A's are now turning into double A's, where you see Assassin's Creed Mirage, you see smaller 7-8 hour games coming out rather than 100-hour games. And the 100-hour games are charging more. They're charging $70-$80. So we're going to probably see less triple A's, a couple more double A's, and just the indie stuff is up in the air. I'm not really too sure about it. But it's not the best place to be. But at the end of the day, it's down to like the gamers. If the gamers want to lean into subscription-based things and focus on that, then there's going to be a result to that. If they want to go out and say, hey, this is a good game, let me make sure that the developers get paid for this, right?
Yeah.
Directly, and the success is, shown through that, then I think we'll be in a really good place. But depending on goodwill of gamers, never gonna really it's something to bank on.
I think that's tough, especially for like minority folks, like if they're developers, because like it's just there's going to be haters everywhere, and like it's just harder to like pool funding.
Yeah, I think this is one rare case. Well, the game industry's never been really good with supporting people or characters that are different.
Yeah.
I think this is even past that. This is just like an inherent game industry isn't funding things problem, and it's anything. It's not just like specific types of games. I'm captain, F the game industry because they don't support X, Y, and Z, but I can even call out when it's more than that.
Yeah.
It's more of the industry is trying to shift to a different business model, and that different business model doesn't support people making games. Really, it supports is like
the corporate overhead.
Yeah, like streaming.
Yeah.
We're talking around it, but it's not even just streaming. It's what do you call it? Like, I don't want to call out Game Pass or anything like that.
Yeah.
But, just services as a whole, because it's not just Game Pass. It's just services as a whole. That's a business model that the game industry is trying to adapt. Developers and some gamers and like media is like, hey, this is like, we never did this before. We don't know what the outcome's going to be. If we went back to how things were, where games came out, you pay for games, you own those games, then we understand that business model. We can keep that business model, understand how it's going to grow. But with this new business model, it's untested and no one knows where it's going to go. People can guess. Anybody who tells you they know exactly what's going to happen is lying.
Well, you have a good track record.
I trust your judgment. I know, like, for me, because like I have Game Pass, but I oftentimes I don't have enough free time to actually sit and play a lot of the games that I download off Game Pass in full. So it's usually like I'll play something, and if I really like it and I know I'm not going to finish it before it leaves Game Pass, I'll just go buy it. And so I use Game Pass a lot for trying out indies that I think look interesting. And I'm like, okay, this is like my little sampler pack of all these different games that I think might be cool, might be my vibe. And then I'll go spend a crap ton of money with going and supporting these devs. Like, I'll go buy them on multiple platforms. But yeah, it is
like that. Then we'd be fine. But
yeah, exactly.
The majority of people aren't treating it that way.
No, they're just like, oh, free games for $20 a month, or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's more cost effective maybe for you, but not for the people making them. It's not going to keep their lights on.
It really doesn't benefit somebody, where a game comes out and a lot of people buy that game, and now that studio has money to kind of do whatever they want. From what I saw from how those deals are set up, not just Game Pass, but PlayStation, whatever service Nintendo's has or whatever, it's the pay structure and setup is different. You can kind of look into it if you want to, because I don't like going in other people's pockets of money or like setups or whatever. It's not an ideal situation,
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I'm a little different than Chara. I feel like I'm more of like a indie connoisseur, indie pusher. I'm a pusher, Katie. I'm a pusher. I have too many indie games Thank you, PR lists. But I play a crap ton, and then I like compartmentalize them in like their genres and like what they feature, and then I kind of tell everybody I can like that might like them. Not just because, well, I'm not being paid to do that, but I want to support devs I think are interesting, or like games that I think are cool, or like the way that they're developed, or this, that, or the other thing. And I always encourage people to wish list, and like I don't think anybody does, but
No, a lot of people wish list. It's just like a lot of people don't wish list the smaller things. I say
Fine.
wish list everything.
Yeah,
Mhm.
If it even looks kind of interesting, wish list it. It doesn't hurt.
that's what I've been saying. I was like, even if you like something this big, if you like this little thing, like this tidbit, go wish list it. You don't have to buy it. Tell your friends not to buy it for you if you don't want it. Just wish list it.
Yeah, I think we are both in the boat of we both have communities with streaming where, for me, I watch a lot of press events, Summer Game Fest, Day of the Devs, all that stuff. And my community, and I think Chalora's community is the same because we have a lot of crossover, is the same in this regard that like we'll watch the AAA presentation and there might be like one thing that we're like, oh, that's cool. We'll wish list that, whatever. And then the indie showcases happen, and we're all like going nuts, wish listing everything in the showcase because the ideas are more interesting and they're more cool art styles, more interesting
Yeah,
concepts.
Indies got to do a lot to stand out.
Yeah.
Right? So I lean into the culture
Mm-hmm.
aspect. I want my games to feel like some like you're playing as somebody different.
Yeah.
You're not
Yeah.
just playing this blank slate. You're playing a character from this place, and you get an understanding of how this character talks and why they do the things that they do, and this their personality. Other games, you're just kind of like a blank slate, and you're supposed to take that role, and they don't even talk, and that's cool too. You got to be. It depends on what mood you're in. But indies, we can do stuff like that because we're not putting like $500 million on the line. And when you put that much money on the line, you got to play it safe. You got to look at history and be like,
Yeah.
what do people like, and put those in there.
Well, speaking of indies, are there any indie games or like studios that are particularly your favorite, or like that are standout for you?
Well, my favorite indie studio is probably
Yeah.
Playdead. I really like Inside, and I liked Limbo until Inside came out, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is so much better.
Yeah.
Decor Games. I don't know if Brass Lion is indie. I know a little bit about what they're doing over there, and that seems great. Xalavier and his team. I'm blanking on the name of the game that just recently released. I'm gonna come back to it. It's gonna hit me later. But yeah, there's so many indies, that have cool things coming out. And I kind of just wish we as an industry kind of just like lifted up everything.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, this week everybody check out this cool thing to make sure this developer gets to make another one. Because I think gamers underestimate their own value. So anybody watching this, if you think that you wish listing my game wouldn't matter, you are completely wrong.
It
Like
does.
if I get one or two new wish lists, it helps boost me up the charts. The wish list charts, you can like see like 2, 3, 5 wish lists can move you up hundreds of spots, as well as just kind of buying the game outright helps me. I made this game based on the funding of the first game. What the first game made went directly into this game. So if people didn't buy the first game, I wouldn't be making this one. If people don't buy this one, probably won't be making the next one. So it all kind of just like helps me make more. I really don't make any money. I kind of just use all the money to make games.
Yeah. I think we,
Yeah.
we both get that kind of financial setup because like we're both in lines of work with what we do where it's like you make a little bit of money just to put it back into exactly what you're doing and hopefully you'll make a little bit more the next time.
Yeah.
So like I definitely get that model. Going with Never Yield and We Never Yield. There's one thing that I really loved about how like thoroughly consistent everything is stylistically. Like top to bottom, like the sound makes sense with the visuals. And there's a lot of indies that I've played where they're a little incongruous. And there's some
Yeah.
things where I'm like, this doesn't quite go with the whole vibe of everything else. But like, my God, like these games have such well structured style from across the board. So like y'all, if you are anything like me when it comes to games you pick and you pick games that just ooze a particular vibe, like this is gonna be so up your alley. It's so fun. It's so much
Oh,
fun.
man, I appreciate that so much because
And
there's a lot of trial and error that goes into that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where with the art style specifically, it's a little bit easier for me because it's just my natural art style.
Mm-hmm.
But with the music, me and Dan, who was the composer, we go back and forth a lot. The first game was hip hop jazz. This game was orchestral hip hop because the last song in the first game was an orchestral hip hop piece that
Mm-hmm.
we spent like 3 months on. So we kind of wanted to like take that and lead it into this new thing. And then in this game, you kind of revisit Detroit and we kind of revisit those themes. So it was very much like, where are you? And the music kind of reflected that. So yeah, we put so much work into it. We made like at least 100 songs and like maybe 10 songs made into the game, or 15 songs made into the game. So yeah, it's been a journey.
Oh, definitely.
That's such a smooth transition.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, the second I got to that last level when I played Never Yield, I was like, oh, this is different. I like this. Like, I liked all of it, but I'm a sucker for orchestral anything. So the second I hear strings kick in, I am ready to go.
Yeah, that's a lot of people's favorite level. That's my level to watch people play. Like,
It's cool. It's really cool.
because it does something different. But,
Yeah.
like as indies, like we were saying, we don't know what people are gonna like. So in the first game, I put in like a couple boss levels, like the van level where you kind of have to jump, and it's like a different way of playing like a running mechanic.
Yeah.
You have to dodge this thing that's chasing you, and then the last level, you do that thing where it flips, and no one's expecting it, and you have to kind of figure it out. And this is my favorite part, to watch people struggle and be like, "Oh, this is what's happening." And like some people didn't know that the two characters were different characters, and they're like, "Oh, wait, they're not the same person." They thought they were different personalities or something like that. But now you do not have to play the first game to play this game. We Never Yield. It's completely standalone. The two characters, now that they talk, they can kind of like recap a little bit of what happened. And the goal is one character is like, this place is cool. How do we not get back here sooner? And other characters like, we need to go home. This is not our home. Let's go back to Detroit. And there's a little bit of conflict, but it's lighthearted.
Yeah, I'm excited for the two-player aspect. I know I've been like poking Chara to do it with me.
Yeah,
I'm
but
down.
the thing about that was like, I wanted to make a single player game where you control both characters, like naturally.
I was struggling.
Yeah, it's a little bit of struggle, and that demo was a little bit rough. We kind of forced to make it, but the main game is a lot more. You can play the tutorial and go straight into the first like easier levels by yourself, and then you ramp up into those later levels. But I really want to. I think the problem with co-op games is that you can't play them by yourself. And I want to solve that. So this game, I think, is completely single player accessible. When you play with somebody else, it just pluses it. You can share a controller. I love when people share one controller because I split the controls in half. So like D-pad controls one character and face button controls that.
And you don't have to buy another one.
Exactly, because when I was a kid, I had one controller.
Yeah.
And people would come over, and I was like,
Tough out of luck. But that scorpion scared the crap out of me. I think it's a scorpion, isn't it?
Yep, it's Scorpion. Yeah. That level, that's a
Yeah.
wild level. Yeah, but we got some cool tricks in this game. Hopefully people like it. Depending on like the reaction, I hope we get to make more. We're working on a couple other projects,
I saw.
but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. I was telling Chara the like little coming soon teaser on your website that I really liked the design of some of the characters.
Yeah. I like that game a lot. It's a real different art style, and people who've seen it, because we did like this little mini preview of the prototype. People are like, I like this. This is a different vibe,
Yeah.
Very Jordan Peele.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm excited. Yeah, I just think I think it's hard to break through the noise with gaming, especially these days. And I think your games really do. They stand out. They're interesting to play. They invert like the auto runner formula enough that I'm finding different things with it that I've never really had in like a auto runner that I've played before. Like just like the inversions on perspective, the changing camera angles, and then kind of on the fly, you're like, oh, and now I have to kind of rethink like the angles that I'm looking for things to come through. Like I'm just excited to see what all What new tricks are in this new one?
That was an interesting conversation that we kind of like had between me and the people working on the game and the publisher. What do we call this game? Like, what is it? Is it a runner? It's not a runner because you have the hub areas, you have a bunch of weird things that happen. You stop gameplay to do like quick timey type events. You attacking enemies while you're moving forward. I understand that point, but I'm trying to figure out what do we call this
Yeah.
thing. Like at some point, like at what point is it not a runner anymore? At what point is it?
It's just a really cool game, y'all. Like,
I was gonna say, I think it's a game.
I mean, we still got to categorize it.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. You could just do all of them.
It's everything. It's just
Yes.
everything.
It's a little bit of everything. It's fun for the whole family.
Yeah.
Yeah, once you start customizing your character, once you start having hub areas, and you boss battles and things like that, I'm like, I don't know what to call this thing, because people who want runners and only runners, I'm like, I don't know if this is it for them. But people who want just action games that don't have any kind of run-in parkour mechanics, I'm like, I don't know if that it fills that box either.
Yeah.
So like, does it check both? Does it check none? I think how we describe games and talk about games is probably going to change pretty soon as well.
That
Everything's an
speaks to-
RPG now.
Oh, that's true.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I think we get into these like genre fads.
Yeah. Like, what's a JRPG anymore?
Yeah.
Isn't it just an RPG?
It's
Literally.
Japanese. It's the same.
Yeah, I call it something I was working on, a BRPG, and I was like, is that a category now?
I think it should be. Why
Yeah.
not?
I think that would be cool. But
Yeah.
it's just interesting conversations. I think stuff.
I think
that
you're
we don't
starting
talk
something.
about. I'm starting trouble.
Yeah. I think it's good. I was interested in this little blurb at the end of your like about section where you were talking about like advocacy and stuff. And I was curious like if you could go in more depth about it. It's okay. So you talked a bit about, or whoever wrote it, I don't know, maybe you did write it.
I probably wrote it. I just don't remember.
It's just
I
been
write
a
lot of
while.
stuff,
Yeah. There was like a little blurb about like advocacy in terms of like promoting like more Black devs, more games surrounding like Black diversity and visual what's the word, visibility in games, and like representation, and that like that's something that you really want to work towards.
Yeah, I think, whenever you say, hey, Black game developers, people roll their eyes and they're like, oh God, I just want to play good games, those type of people. And I'm like, that's completely valid.
Yeah.
I used to get upset about it. I'm like, we support, these different type of games because, you don't want to play the same characters. Maybe they do want to play the same characters all the time. My counter to their point is like, what happens when it's your characters that's not being made anymore? You're going to want like you to be represented as well, right? So I think more of my point, that's more palatable to people who don't care for those conversations, would be not that I care too much about it being palatable.
Yeah.
But
I don't
I'm trying
care.
to be,
Yeah.
I'm in a good mood today. So I'm just like, I just want everybody to like the game,
Yeah.
So video games, you're supposed to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, feel a different culture, do something different. And I think by supporting different characters, you make sure that the game industry tells different stories, right? And sometimes those stories are adapted into the games that you like, even though you might not like the games that these creators make or the characters that these creators make. We should kind of like push for things to not just be repeats and copies and pastes. We got the same looking kind of character for every game or whatever. If you mix it up a little bit, the stories get a little bit more interesting. It's not forced. You don't have to play it, but you shouldn't be mad at its existence, And that's why we should support different creators, because they are the ones who make those different types of characters, or who can speak on them the best. They're more authentic. They're not, what some like to say, pandering. They're not pandering because they're made by those people. I know about Black kids from Detroit the best, so I made games about Black kids from Detroit. I know a lot about Black women, so I can make a game about Black women. I'm also going to ask them about it and say, because the main enemy and We Never Yield is Karmic, the evil aunt. Um, and I reached out to a lot of Black women about her in the story because I wrote a really specific script and something happens in the script and I wasn't sure how people would react to it. So I reached out to Black women. I was like, hey, can you take a look at this? Is this bad? Should I do something different with it? Is this a good way for her to be speaking? And it was just asking for advice,
Yeah.
and getting their input from people who live that life. Um, and I think it's way better for it. I got a lot of good feedback, especially of how I wanted to end the game. Because it's a little dramatic. Some stuff happens, uh, and they were like, "This is a little rough, but these are some things that you could do to make it a little bit more smooth." And I was like, "Okay, that's fair."
Now I'm more excited.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just interesting. It's nothing crazy. Well, it's a little bit crazy, but it's nothing earth shattering.
Yeah. I mean, I really respect like doing your research. Like, I feel like even when I reach out to like my own community, or when I talk about like my experiences for my group, like, you know, I am not the end all be all for that conversation. So I like to get different perspectives from those people. Maybe theirs is different, or maybe they have something else to add to the conversation that might make it even better. And it sounds like it really benefited your game.
Yeah, it's just I never wrote for a game before. The first game was very much silent. It's like a goal, and there was no dialogue. The characters didn't talk or anything like that. This is my first time like writing a script and hiring voice actors, and doing voice acting sessions, and be like, it's just feel more like this. It should feel like this. You're
Hmm.
happy, you're sad, type
Yeah.
of thing. So I wanted to make sure it was good, and it was authentic, and people, black women, had a voice in this black woman character, female character that's pretty dope and powerful.
I
It'd be
love
just
her.
kind of weird for me to sit there and like make it up and be like,
Yeah.
this is how she should act or whatever. And as much as I know about black women, I know better than to like pretend I know what they thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I love her design. So
Yeah, same.
Yeah, it was like a little sexy, it was a little, powerful. You show all the hips. She got like
yeah.
Hmm.
when I was modeling her, I was like just looking at Mrs. Incredible. I was like, dang, that's
Yes. Well, and I think too, like, from a character design perspective, like, a lot of villains live or die off of the silhouette alone.
Mhm.
And so, like, if you've got a character that has, like, a really defined silhouette, both, like, between their body proportions, but also, like, their costume proportions and everything else, like, that's, like, what determines for me, like, if it immediately reads, like, this is a successful villain design or it's not. And yours definitely is. Like, it's such a good design, top to bottom.
Yes,
Which like
sexy
part
black woman.
exactly like
You got some skin, but it's respectful.
hmm
Yeah.
It might not always be. I might just make a super sexy game one day. Who knows?
Honestly though, that would be a serve, I think. Like it would be pretty fierce.
I feel like now that I did because there's a couple of female characters in this game, and like they're all nice, and
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, I got my goodwill, so now I can do crazy.
Yes, you had to push the envelope a little more.
Right,
Uh
so people know I'm capable of pulling
yes,
back. Now I can like
exactly.
push forward.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like, just your approach, just the way you are as a developer and like how your track record is on the games you've worked on, like, it's so clear that authenticity is such a big part of your process in everything that you do. Like, it doesn't feel like it's coming from, like an outside
I want to make
perspective.
all the money.
Exactly. Like, I mean, truly, that's what I like about a lot of indies is that you're able to have like a more curated experience as like a play, like in terms of like what you're getting out of it, and you're gonna get more of a curated product from the perspective of the people working on it. So
Yeah.
like you just don't get that when you've got thousands of people on a
Hmm.
team necessarily compared to like a handful of people with a very specific perspective on a really specific idea that they want to put out there. So Oh, I just can't stop singing praises enough for for your work because it's so good. It's just so
Thank you
good.
so much. I do appreciate it. It's just tired. We trying to trying to launch this game. But yeah, I think it just goes into like one pure vision, right? I think with
Yeah.
those bigger teams, everybody has a say. But I mean, not in a mean way, but on my team, it's like, yo, this is the Aerial Night game. This is what we making. Because I like the singular, clear vision. For better or for worse, people will love it or people might hate it, but either way, people would kind of feel like it's consistently this thing.
Yeah, I think that was because we talked a lot about Dot's home last night because we were in a call together. Yeah,
I can tell you stories about that song. It was interesting.
do
Was it?
tell. Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh,
we're both like, oh, okay.
well, I'll tell good stories then. It was a lot of cooks,
A
Yeah.
lot of
in the
cooks in the
kitchen.
kitchen.
It was a lot of
Okay,
people who never made a game before. It was a lot of
right.
script writers, right? So they were writing these big ideas, and I was just helping them along, and I was like, no, no, definitely not. You know, they wanted to do a lot for the
Hmm.
budget they had and the time frame they had, and it was just me and one other person who was making the game. So we had to pull back on a lot of things. It turned into it wasn't just kind of a narrative piece. It was more than that. It was a big puzzle adventure type of thing. And we pulled all the way back and kind of like cut away. It was like, why are we doing this? Do we
Hmm.
absolutely need this? And made a lot of changes and working with a lot of artists. That's a 3D game. It looks like a 2D game, but I did most of the 3D models for that to kind of make that space. So it was just
Right.
like a lot going on. Story wise, I was lucky enough to have a lot of input. I grew up in Detroit. My grandma's name is Dorothy. We named Dot after her, and it pretty much mimics a lot of stuff that she went through. From trying to keep her house to we had those conversations. We were like, what did the story be about? It was like the housing stuff. But the kid in that story who was in the basement that flooded and
Hmm.
got sick. I had all my video games in my grandma's basement,
Yeah.
in Dot's basement, and the basement flooded, and that was my GameCube down there, and there was mold down there, and I had this cough. So we pulled a lot of that from just kind of stuff that actually happened in
Hmm.
Detroit and stuff that not only me but a lot of people went through.
It definitely felt very based in reality.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, but very
Um,
good game. Evan was like the lead writer on that, and he did amazing, kind of pulling that together.
Kara and I were gonna kind of go in like super in depth, and we were like, damn, this should have been on the episode.
Because it was
But
like we probably went back
we
and
both got neutral ending.
yeah, like we
Yeah.
went back and forth about it for probably 45 minutes to an hour, and we're like, the game is barely longer than that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's a very
and
short game.
and we're over here like discussing all the like microcosm potential different choices that we each made and like why we
Why we
made
did it.
them and
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
It was
it
it's
really
was supposed to
good.
be a lot of endings, but we landed on like 3 endings. I was
yeah.
like, yo,
Yeah.
can y'all chill? Because I got to
Yeah.
put all this together.
Yeah.
But I
Well,
think
and it's a
like
free game,
yeah,
so
and I think it's a wonderful game that really prompts discussion, and I
Mhm.
feel like for me like I didn't grow up really knowing anything about um, gentrification really, and
Yeah.
and then like not knowing like the impact it had in places like Detroit, and like this is a game that you could very easily implement into like school, into like an educational structure to teach students about the impacts of that, have discussions about that decision of renting or buying or moving from one place to another, and like is it good
Mhm.
to keep a family home, and like the sense of community and like all of the things that come with that. I think it could be a really great resource and tool for prompting those discussions in generations to come.
Yeah.
yeah. A little bit of other stuff in there too.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff in there.
There's a lot of stuff.
I think one of the core things, one of the, like it was a long process. There was a lot of people involved. The writers did an amazing job. The project came out really well.
Hmm.
I mean, just to kind of, I said I was going to tell you stuff. One of the things that came up was, when they coming up with the characters and they would give the characters, backgrounds and whatever. They would come there were very few men in the story. It was just like the kid, and I was like, hey, there's like no male representation. There's like 10 women, and that's great, but you know, it should be something else. And then they was like, oh no, there's the husbands, and I was like, but all the husbands are jerks. You know, every husband can't just be. Every male figure in the game can't just be a terrible person. You know, I was like, because there was like a lot of ladies writing the story. So I was like, can we just have, you know, some nuance, some like context and things like that, rather than this guy is terrible, you know. So yeah, I think they made some adjustments to kind of like be like, oh, you know, this guy, you know, has his reasons, you know, he just has a hard life, you know, type of thing, rather than he's just like an evil guy, you know. But you know, that's how some people see, you know, people. So I was just like, you know, I just don't want this to be like real toxic. It should be like overall, the villain should be the situation. It should be, you know, the racism, the redlining and things like that.
I was like, I hated the like real estate guy the whole time. So.
Yeah, same.
I feel like we're supposed to kind of hate him, but
yeah, I mean, you know, at
just
some point you guys understand people just kind of, you know, go down the family tree. They
Yeah.
do what their parents taught them, you know. That's why I don't really, you know, I still get mad when people say terrible stuff, but you know, I try to come at it with some kind of context. You know, they don't know any better, but it's not an excuse, but you know,
it's an explanation.
Reason, you know?
Yeah,
it's an explanation. You know, they're not just pure evil. They're just not out to get you. You know.
We all come from somewhere, and they're just living off their experience. What indie games you're playing, or what games in general you're playing right now? Because that's the topic that we like to.
I have a crazy backlog because for the last year
we're
and a half, I haven't touched anything. You know, I've been buying games, and then the games that I bought like 6 months later are like a quarter of the price.
Yeah,
like, it's wasting money. So just waited. But I think I got Persona 3 I have to play. I got Like a Dragon. I started. I didn't even kind of get too far into it. Indie game names are so hard to remember because you know you only see them for a certain amount of time. But I had a bunch of indie games on my PlayStation. Yeah, I kind of download and I have it in a queue. But yeah, my goal is, you know, take a month, just sit here and just like see how much I can get through before I kind of dive into my next project.
Yeah. I mean, you've been working hard. Take some time just to
staycation.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I'm gonna try to. But you know, you're in work mode, so you're like, yeah, I'll play for a little bit, and then you're like, I'll just do a little bit of work, and you fall back into stuff.
Yeah. It's like you'll be playing something, you're like, this is a wonderful idea. I get inspired by whatever. Let me go write this down, and then before you know it, you're not playing the game anymore, and you're working on stuff again.
But that's one of the reasons I can't play games because I don't want to steal ideas. I want to kind of keep focus, or my game where like you would see my game slowly transition into RPG. Yeah. Just because that's what I play the most.
For whatever reason, I just paid Google. I don't know what their problem is, but they keep saying the call's about to end, and I'm like, it shouldn't. I just paid you. Stop ending. So if it ends, I'll just start the call over and we'll wrap it up.
I like to end I like to end like interview situations with a question like that, just to be like, what are you playing now? So I think it's interesting, especially like from the developer point of like, you know, what do you play sometimes like to get out of work mode or whatever? Because like for us as streamers, like we both have games and genres that we love that we don't really stream because they're games for us.
Yeah, a lot of games are boring to watch too, but they're really fun.
Like I mean, we're both JRPG divas and like we love them, but menu navigation is not fun to watch. Like
I love adjusting my stats and stuff. And
same.
But I wouldn't have anybody watch me do that, you know.
It's like 50 side quests for all the best gear. Like nobody wants to see that.
Just text, just reading text.
Tell everyone where we can follow you online, real quick.
Ariel Knight on everything. Ariel_Knight. You could probably also just type in Black Game Developer. I'm sure I'll pop up somewhere. If you type in We Never Yield into anything, I should also pop up.
Perfect.
Just go on Steam, wishlist it, and then click Ariel Knight.
Not just my game, but there's a lot of other Black developers making some amazing stuff. So like whenever I get to talk to people, I say, go look at their stuff. At least, you know, watch the trailer. You might see something that you might be your new favorite game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm a big advocate for the Black Voices in Gaming showcase. Every time it happens,
Justin and his team is amazing.
They're so good. I think that's really everything for today. So,
thanks so much for coming.
Yes, thank you.
No, thank you. This was amazing. This was a good conversation.
Alrighty. Well, we will see you all whenever we see you in the next one. And until
See you
then,
when we see you.
yeah. Until then,
Or
bye.
hear you when we hear you.
Yes.